Welcome to People First Builders, celebrating leaders in construction who build success through their people. My name is Fletcher Wimbush, your host. I'm the CEO of Discover.ai, a performance hiring software helping small and mid-sized AEC companies solve their hardest problem, people. We help people first leaders install and execute repeatable talent acquisition systems that drive business results by hiring top performers, lowering turnover, and building world-class company cultures. Stick around to the end and you can learn more about how to become a guest on our podcast and share your story with the world. Welcome to the People First Builders podcast. My name's Fletcher Wimbush. I'm your host. Today, I'm excited to have Scott Harvey-Lewis join us. Scott has a remarkable career. He was elevated to high levels of engineering, consulting, leadership at larger firms, and ultimately then took the plunge, like many who are listening to this probably did, and decided to start his own firm. You guys specialize in building safety inspections. You're doing a lot of forensic work and supporting legal litigation or doing expert witness type work as well in the state of Florida, if I understand that correct. Scott, maybe share a little bit about your journey. You know, you've followed a traditional path. You worked your way up within larger firms, became a leader of large teams, and then you decided to take the plunge to start your own firm. Like many small firms, that's a similar story, but it tells yours. And how'd you end up where you're at today?
Well, as a fellow Vistage member, we're probably thinking to ourselves, as business owners, we're part of that crazy population that decide to go off into the abyss, so to speak. But in leading larger teams and my career in a whole, I guess we started off very traditionally in the sense of coming in, being a structural designer, being a structural engineer, and then I think like anybody at some point in your career, you decide, well, what's next? And you start taking on different roles, different responsibilities, and then eventually you may reach a crossroads where it's time to essentially think, maybe I need to do this for myself. And I just reached a point in my career where all things were kind of pointing that way. One thing was the Florida laws that came out in safety, which was really my niche of what I was doing at the time. And then I was reaching a point in my career where I was essentially on executive teams, and in those arenas, it really becomes about personalities and politics and so on. And so I was reaching a point where I was just thinking, well, maybe I just need to do it for myself. And in talking to my wife, and at that time period in our life, it was a good opportunity to do so. So fast forward 3.5 years later, almost 4, it's been a great journey so far. And definitely when you come to talking about hiring people, there's a big difference when you're, let's say, a startup and the owner or founder hiring somebody as opposed to part of a team or a bigger company, and you're essentially given a budget or maybe a position to fill. There's a very different mindset in those two scenarios.
Yeah, I think there's got to be a lot of differences there. And so, I mean, you're coming from the consulting engineering space world, and obviously, we don't need to belabor the point that finding engineers is easy or hard to do. It's obviously very difficult to do, and they're not making enough of those. But what is the difference when you're at a larger firm? Was it easier? How was it different? I guess,
Well, for me, I won't say it was easier in the sense of finding people, because in my last couple, let's say when I was working for other people, I was very tailored in the way of my approach. I was going on LinkedIn scouring. I had to go through multiple candidates, meet with HR teams, get job positions out, go through the hiring process. But I think the difference now versus then is that as a business owner and with a smaller team, each hire really has a great impact, not only on the company itself, but on me personally, right? Because if I'm taking a risk on somebody at this point, I'm essentially fronting the money from my pocket, as opposed from the company's stash or the company's budgets. That in essence, if I make a wrong hire, my salary may remain the same when I'm in that position. But if I make the wrong hire right now, my bottom line changes and my actual income changes. So I think it's a much different thought process and maybe a bigger microscope on the hire at that point, when it really affects me in a much larger way, and obviously the team and the company
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Yeah, because now it affects not only your pocketbook, like how much cash you bring home to support your family or grow your business. There's
Yeah.
a lost opportunity cost as well, right? Now that person's not helping you grow because they're not able to create excess capacity or whatever role it is that they're not fulfilling goals. But on top of all of that, then somebody else is doing double duty, and it's probably you in many cases, or maybe some of your other key people, which creates some extra pressure on you and them to top it off. So there's like three big downsides when you're at a smaller firm, right?
Yeah, it's well, the team and I, we have a saying like, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. So like
Yeah.
when we're hiring people through the process, we want to really feel like this is a great decision. And also we always say like this person or whoever it is should be making your life easier. So like it's very easy to think of people that make your life easier,
Yeah.
and it's very easy to think of people that don't, or a scenario where that hire is becoming more of a task than a refreshing experience as people get up ramped and going on projects. So I feel like we just use a very simple outlook of, is it a hell yes? And if so, then it's the right person. If not, then
Yeah.
we don't want to really dilute the team and the expertise by hiring
Well,
below
basically,
standard.
if there's any hesitation, then you use that as a red flag to say,
Yeah,
"Hey, this probably is not the best fit for us because there's something here that maybe we can't put our finger on, but we're not just super excited about this individual." And so where there's smoke, there's fire, probably. Right?
exactly. And in putting the microscope down, obviously, as you look at somebody's resume or CV, most people are not going to put things on a CV that is not appealing or
Yeah.
matching the job. But as you go more into their personality and maybe their values and how they fit in with the team and maybe the personalities of the team itself, you really start to see if this person is really the right person for the job in the sense of not just the skills, but also the culture and the personality, because that is probably the bigger impact on the team than whether they can essentially sign and seal a document or do the job. So we really take
Well,
a very close look at that.
it's an interesting point you make because there's an interesting study by this company who supports and helps job seekers write or rewrite or write their resumes and or helps them with general career advice. And they run these surveys, and one survey they did is they asked, job seekers essentially how often do they basically embellish or lie on their resumes. And 85%, and this was like massive. There was like tens of thousands of people who completed this. They self-admitted. Now they did this in in an environment where they felt safe to be very honest. But 85% of them said that they essentially lie or embellish on their resume. So how do you get to the truth, right? If a CV or a resume is not the truth, and I think that's a common mistake people make. They read those and then they believe what they see on those.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hiring is a science. And I think because you're in that business, you understand that it's not a feeling or just looking at the candidate. But one of the things that I've seen over the course of interviewing many people, because what we do is a niche. So it's very, very rare we find a candidate that is doing exactly what we are doing from a competitor, and that you can say you can explain and they know exactly the job. A lot of times we're bringing in either, let's say, people from the construction industry that are project managers, or we're bringing in design engineers and say, well, you're going to put on this forensic hat, or now you're going to be doing more field work and working on our style things. And I think I can conclusively say no, the ones who oversell at that point, because you'll have there's really a learning curve that happens, and I'd say even the best of engineers take about 3 to 6 months to get to a point where they're feeling comfortable. But the ones in those interviews that don't show that level of humility, that are acknowledging there's going to be a learning curve, and that they're not going to be, essentially, if they're up here, they're not going to just make a translation to up here. Those who interview and say, well, I'm here, so I should be here, or forensic is going to be easier because I'm a design engineer. Let's say 9 times out of 10, they're the ones that are struggle the most, because they're either overconfident or just lying, like you're saying, about their skills and what they possess, because it's just part of the interview. Why not present?
And they might be lying. They might be lying to themselves too, a little bit, right?
Yeah.
They go. They dismiss or they overlook the difficulty of the challenge set up ahead of them, and I think smart people, have an optimism to the things that they take on. Yeah, that's something that I think I can be very successful on. But here are the things that I'm going to need to learn or the challenges I'm going to have to face. So they have this sort of like practical optimism versus this like
Yes.
dismissive, like, oh, it's going to be easy, no problem kind of attitude, right?
Yeah, they definitely show a level of humility, and they will lay out that, hey, I've never done this before. And they may mention I need to take these courses, or I'll take some time to study this, but I should be up to speed in this amount of time. But there is definitely a recognition that there's a change. There's other ones that just come in and like, hey, this is no problem. I love forensics, or I love this, and
Yeah.
I usually adjust pretty well. And then those people also shoot for the highest pay as well.
Yeah.
And if it's all lined up, right? The resume is a little bit embellished, or a lot embellished. Then you have them exaggerating their capabilities, and as they curve up,
Yeah.
they're asking for the top line salary as well.
Yeah.
And I think when all those things start lining up, you probably are going to end up with a pretty poor.
Yeah, and they might end up being those what I call yes people, and yes people can be some of the most frustrating people to have in an organization because they always tell you what you want to hear, and so you kind of like want to like them, right? But then they continuously under deliver, and you're
Yeah.
like that doesn't do me any good. I would much rather you set a realistic set of expectations for then I could have then decided whether or not,
Yeah.
to give you that project or go down this path with you, or at least know what to expect or when my deliverable is going to be here instead of,
Yeah. Yeah. I gotta stay away from those.
yeah, exactly. Right. So in a bigger firm, you mentioned something earlier that I thought was interesting. You mentioned that you would scour LinkedIn and actually like connect with engineers that or that you might actually be interested in hiring as a kind of a VP or a senior level leader within a large firm. You were proactively sourcing and reaching out to talent yourself. Was that something that you had been taught from other leaders or something that they sort of mandated, or is that something you were just like, I'm screwed, I'm going to do this because I'm desperate,
Well, I think maybe that's a nice tie into the culture of the company, right? So I think just me naturally, if I want something, I'm gonna go get it. I'm not gonna just, eh, I hate when people,
Sure.
yeah, I hate when people say, well, the talent pool is low, or this, or it's hard to find. It's like, well, it's hard to find because you're using all these passive approaches, or you're relying on somebody else. Maybe you're relying on an HR generalist that they're just trying to punch the clock. So they're gonna shoot things out into the ether of the internet, and if nobody clicks on it and they don't get a resume, then nothing has happened. So I've always been the way. If I want something, I'm gonna get it, and I'm gonna essentially check everything I can do before I say, well, it can't be done or something. But usually, that's not the case. You can do it, right? Um, but in a past life, one of the positions I had, our company wasn't, let's say, the leading name in what we did, right? And we didn't have a large team to go out and hunt, and we were competing against maybe firms that had a larger brand, or better longevity and more to offer. So I had to be like, what's going to set us apart? So it was more of like the personal approach. I'm going to hunt. I'm going to talk directly. And at that point is when I started doing LinkedIn videos, and I was going to like, I'm going to present what is happening in the office so that people can see that we're real people. And at that point, I don't think many people, definitely not on LinkedIn or definitely not in the engineering space, was putting out content that was real people. It was always these cookie cutter, like
Yeah.
cheese moments, or like highlight, very polished. There was no real video at the time or anything. So I think that stuck out. And then as we grew, we had other people now having testimonials, reaching out to friends. But all along, I was always sending direct messages and hunting, because sometimes also I might reach out to somebody today and they're not ready, but 2 years later, which has happened before, we met the connection and it happened. So it was a very continuous process of just storing all these individuals and mining my connections and reach on LinkedIn to get individuals.
Well, I think that's really important that you highlight that. I'm glad that you are a living, breathing example of being what I call being your own headhunter. And this is something that I teach to Vistage groups. Every Vistage group I talk to, I really try to emphasize, and I actually walk them through this exercise. So, whatever industry they're in, many times it's it's a diverse set of industries, but I think this is particularly important for engineering firms because the talent pool is sparse, right? And the talent and anywhere you have sparse or high demand talent, right, where the talent pool is very niche, very specialized, and not very large, this is essentially the one of the best weapons that you have
Yeah.
in terms of finding folks. And is and so we just go into LinkedIn and we just say, well, who are your competitors? Like, where do these people live, right? Like if I need a civil engineer specialized in, I don't know, whatever, stormwater
Uh-huh.
or something, right? And I'm in whatever metropolitan in the country,
Yeah.
and okay, well, there's only probably like a handful of firms in that metro that have civil engineers that are specialized in stormwater, right? So you probably know what they are because you're in the space, right? And
Yeah.
so you know who your competitors are. So you can make that list, and it might be 4 or 5 or maybe 10, of your
Right.
competitors in that general region, and you can just plug the name of that company in there in LinkedIn, and then it'll just pull up a list of all the people who work there, and you can just start like go connect, and hopefully you leave a little nice note. I don't endorse like direct solicitation because sometimes
Yeah.
your competitors get mad, but you could leave a note like we're in the same space. Love to just connect with you, maybe grab a cup of coffee someday, right?
Yeah, it was well, interestingly, as let's say the influence snowballed, you would have individuals from other companies that are actually adding you,
Yeah.
right? And if they add you or they keep your content or they leave a message, then that would be a nice segue in because if people are looking, they're going to give you prompts what they're looking, whether
Yeah.
they're peeping the profile or if they're sometimes they'll post something on their site like it's not nice to feel underappreciated at your job. Like they're just say
So you're paying attention.
or they're like open to work, right? There's so many different things. Um, but I think most importantly, as I did more content and people were like, oh, I like him on LinkedIn. Then when I started reaching out, then it was people were like, oh, well, we need to pay attention to this. There's somebody that I follow or listen to or whatever reaching out. So it was
There's some familiarity already when you say, "Hey, let's grab coffee," or whatever.
yeah. So they'll at least take the meeting or respond, and not necessarily where they're looking, but at least you're making that connection, and then you can always circle back. So that was very helpful at the time, and it worked really well.
Yeah, yeah, and so I like how you point out and just remind people that this is a long it can be a short-term play, like, you can get a win. I mean, I've done
Mhm.
this with friends, and they've hired aces in, like, 30 or 45 days
Wow.
following this strategy. But, it doesn't always go quickly because timing or whatever, there's lots involved here, but it is a long-term play, and you're building a Rolodex of relationships now that you can call on. I mean, I imagine, have you been able to call on some of those as you started your own firm then? Like these
Yeah.
maybe people that you 5 years ago you connected with on LinkedIn and that conversation maybe never went anywhere, but they have such familiarity with you that
Yeah.
timing is right today and
Yeah, or they're reaching out to say congratulations, we're following you. This is awesome. Like so there's definitely relationships that are built, and again, you don't want to abuse that in any way.
yeah,
And I've not really, well, I've not been, let's say, as you say, targeting direct competitors and trying to hire their people because in the space that I'm in right now, what I've been trying to build is almost what's the word? Utilizing all these different avenues that we have at our fingertips nowadays, whether the outsourced work, you have AI, you have consultants you can hire. There's so many things you can put together and have a very efficient company that does
yeah,
not necessarily have to be traditional anymore, where you're relying on the direct hire to solve a problem, where you could have something that's back of house that you don't even need to hire in this country anymore
yeah.
to get somebody because you know what? Anybody with a certain level of intelligence or degree or license can do that, whether they sit across the world or not, right?
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting point. I want to come back to that because I think in especially in consulting engineering because of the extreme deficit of talent. I think, a lot of firms, unfortunately, that I talk to are pretty committed to like, I want them in office and they need to be here. And there's lots of trade-offs when you go remote for sure, but it can be done successfully and it can be done internationally, which then opens up a huge pool of talent, especially in the engineering space. I mean, in South America and, Asia, they've trained these kids to be engineers, right? And they're actually desperate for jobs, in many ways, right? So
Right.
there's a great pool to pull on there. So have you had success, ultimately offshoring
Yeah.
then some key roles in that?
Yeah, great success. Again, it's not something like you just hire one person and it works out. But
Yeah.
like you said, there's definitely talent across the globe, right? And a lot of the countries, they may even have higher education in the sense that engineers have to do 5 years, 6 years of school before they can become an engineer, whereas here it's a little different. And so, like, I've gone to, let's say, the Philippines and got engineers that are licensed in their country,
Yeah.
let's say 8 to 10 years experience, and they're very smart, very efficient through the work, and we haven't skipped a beat because they know what they're doing, as opposed to maybe at the same cost I'd be hiring somebody that's entry level that I have to train, that's never really done any design work, never set foot on a site. And so that person will need more guidance, more direction than somebody who is 10 years in a career and has led big projects before and is just, like you said, looking for a better opportunity, better pay, and is willing to be remote and work,
Yeah.
you know, from across the world.
Yeah, and these folks, as you said, I mean, they a lot of times have a lot of real world experience, and there may be an assimilation process or like teaching them or a learning curve. But again, the cost and the risk becomes so much lower. So if there is a miss, it's the pain of having that miss is minimized tremendously because it didn't cost you
Yeah.
10 times as much here than you had. Those kinds of
Yeah.
things.
So for my firm, it's more what the ones that interface with the clients. What I want each client to get is the expert, right? So they get the expert in front of their face. You're paying premiums, and really, I mean, when you're hiring top firms, you are paying a premium for them, but you may not get the expert. You may get the EI, the entry level person, because how do they make their money, right? You can't get the principal every time. But in the way I frame things is that I'm thinking of it as like almost like a restaurant. You go to your favorite restaurant, you'll meet the maitre d', and if he's pleasant and experienced, it's going to be good. Your main waiter is going to be interacting with the manager, but whoever is cooking in the kitchen, you beside the chef, you don't really care who is there, right? You're not going to inspect everybody.
As long as the food comes out good.
No, no. So there's certain back of house tasks that it doesn't matter who does it. If it's done well, the person presenting it, which in my case would be the expert, they're going to be able to leverage all these tools and people so they can get the product to the person quickly. And then they're the ones sitting with them and going through things, which I think the clients appreciate, because that's really what people are paying for at the end of the day. You don't want to be getting the advice from somebody who may not have the years of experience, but you can't see them because you don't want to pay, let's say, $500 to $1,000 an hour for them. But if you can get that person to give you things quickly because they have the back of house and they have the time now to do it, and I think that elevates the experience, and really that's what's most important to me at the end of the day.
Yeah. And we're seeing, I mean, so as a senior level consulting engineer, like you are really the orchestrator of a team. And that's probably always been true, but now it's even probably more so. Now you're orchestrating AI, you're maybe offshore or entry level, US based talent. And you are the face of the product, the customer, and your ability to lead through that process is maybe almost as important or more important than your technical skills. I mean, obviously as an engineer, technically sound, but that leadership capability is crucial, right? To be able to
Yeah,
get to the client, right?
yeah. Well, at the end of the day, it's a human touch. So I think
Yeah.
going back to what makes it different is we've had engineers just in the course of the career. They may be very smart, but they're not able to articulate their decision. And not only that, maybe sometimes the decision is not beneficial to the client. And we've had cases where an engineer may be very blunt with it, and they don't understand that this means money, this means headache, this means maybe a huge shift in the way somebody is doing it, but they deliver it in a way that is almost like, well, I have a degree, I have this, I have the license, so you got to do it the opposite way. And I think without the human element and the let's say the emotional intelligence to be able to use those skills and knowledge in a way that can be broken down and digested by the client, you end up with I think that is actually the more important, in my mind, skill set to have. And I always tell people maybe the engineering component in this world is maybe about 30% or less, whereas these soft skills maybe account for 70. So I'd rather have that 70%, and I think I do have a good portion of the 30.
Yeah, obviously you've had a very successful career as an engineering leader, which means that you've spent a lot of time working directly with clients and helping them solve problems, right? And articulating solutions when it maybe is not the most ideal situation, I imagine, right? No. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, we're all people, and I think if somebody trusts you and they understand that you've done your best job and your interest is with them, and also like you bring the problem, how are we going to solve this, right? Like that is the way forward. I think people appreciate it because nothing is really perfect in
I always
life.
tell
So
engineers, yeah, don't tell me what you can't do. Tell me what you can do, right?
e- exactly. So we have a lot of like this is all the bad things. Like I don't want to hear all that. Let's move us forward.
Yeah. So I love this that you spent a career. Now, I want to go back to a little bit of that. So you also have spent time creating content, and so that's a big thing that we evangelize for clients. So we're always encouraging them to create recruitment marketing content. So we typically do that for our clients for free, or some people can pay for that. But like we're encouraging them to do it now. Even though we give it to them for free, I'd say only maybe like 1 or 2 out of 10 clients ever take us up on that offer to go and create video testimonials, candidate testimonials, employee testimonials, to go like walk the office, talk to people, to use content. Because you build those connection requests, that you take the time to connect with people in your world and your ecosystem and build a network of people that could be phenomenal future hires or immediate hires for you. But then we forget to tell these stories. And so you also took the time to do that. So what kind of stories would you tell when you walked around the office with your phone, like what things would you record and what were you sharing?
Oh, well, at one point I had an assistant and we just like whatever I'm doing, just shoot, right? So like,
Yeah.
because I mean, the office was actually really fun at the time, and we'd have
Yeah.
meetings, and we didn't just meet to meet. We'd have real meetings, so we'd kind of film the team leading the meetings, which I think is different, right? So I would just kind of orchestrate this to everybody. So we'd capture that. We'd have social gatherings, so we'd capture that. We'd just have people doing silly things around the office. We'd capture that. And we try to tailor that. At least we're going to do one maybe funny post. We'll do one maybe informational. And then if somebody was hired, we'd ask them what they like about the company. How has it been so far? We just essentially capture what we were doing. There was no real stage into this. And then
Yeah.
sometimes there was different trends on social media that we'd kind of recreate. But for the most part, it was just let's just capture as much footage of the office, because we were a really fun office, and I think people that joined us really saw that, and people who were scrolling through LinkedIn and social media really enjoyed it at the time, because like I said, at some point, I mean, it may be going a different direction right now, but at some point all LinkedIn was very vanilla, boring.
Forward. Yeah.
So if you saw something pop out that was different, it was like, okay, let's pay attention to this. So we were really
So
groundbreaking in that.
So you didn't worry about like over engineering or over producing the content. It's just, hey, my iPhone's good enough and I'm gonna, we're just gonna be authentic about this and just share these real moments. And I'm sure you probably edited them a little bit, I imagine, but you didn't like overdo this thing.
No, I think most people don't want it to be overdone. I think the minute they see something too polished, they're
Yeah.
gonna just scroll through. So I think the more raw, in the sense of like we're not trying to airbrush this or put a filter on it. We're just gonna show you live time what's happening. I think people appreciate that, because that's how we really digest content nowadays. We're not, in some type of fancy studio taking all these cuts to get the perfect video to talk about the company, why it was started, and grandpappy and all that stuff. Then we're not talking about
Yeah. Oh, I love that, and that's what I tell people too. I'm like, and now with engineers, right? They're camera shy or whatever, or I don't know. They're kind of introverted. They're work. I mean, they're very you tend, as a group, you tend to be very precise, right? It's like guys, don't worry about it. It's gonna be okay, right? Like, the more authentic and a little bit rough, it's just perfectly fine. We just want to keep this authentic as possible and tell these stories there. I think that's really important. So you go out, you make the connection requests, you start to network, you start some conversations, you start then sharing content, and then that starts getting the likes, and then the people reaching out to you saying, "Hey, I love that video."
Well, the funny thing is, just to show you kind of the almost like the kill shot, or the at the end was, I've at some point when my content was being like widely digested, and people were like, "I want to work with you. I read this piece, blah 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 blah. I'm drawn to you." So what would happen is we'd interview, and then if somebody was saying something like, I'm really, this is a hard choice, whatever, whatever, then my next post would be like, "Here's the time I made a hard choice," right? And like, I'd write something, and I've had many people say, "When you wrote that, I felt like that was what I needed to hear, or that was the post for me." And I'm like, "It was for me. I wrote it just." So
You
so
inspire.
you could, yeah, so you can kind of like complete the arc, and use that influence to help better things.
Have you read a book called "They Ask, You Answer" from Marcus Sheridan?
No, like,
You're gonna love it. I mean, if you have time, you listen to an Audible or whatever. But if just everything you're saying reminds me of his message there, right? When people
yeah,
say something, or something comes up, or they ask a question, he's like, just create some content around it. Like, if you have a response, right, and then respond, and then just turn that
uh,
into a blog or a video or a vlog
well,
or whatever, right? And just post it, right? Because if one person's asking you, or one person is feeling this way, then there's probably many others that are also feeling like, "Hey, this is really tough. I've been at this firm for a long time. Making the move to another firm is very scary, because
yeah.
I'm gonna have to relearn some things, and I'm gonna have to, will I like the people, or whatever the fears are that they're gonna be facing in that journey, right?"
Exactly, and then you just complete the arc, put some content.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. All right. Well, so I got oh, no, there's one last thing you mentioned we just got to unpack here, because you touched on this. So you mentioned briefly that, hey, okay, you started getting some momentum with this, and then you started seeing the people that you were hiring referring,
Mhm.
and this was like a snowball effect. So what was your ultimate experience with that, in terms of, then did you have to be as aggressive, or were
I
just
mean, that was
people
a great
really?
point of things. Yeah, it was a great point where it reached, was that you had different tiers of hires now, and those individuals became like the ambassadors for you, and they would now attend career fairs. And 'cause it's better if you're at a career fair that, let's say, somebody fresh out of college is there talking to college people, than
Yeah.
just a guy, on his next trip trying to make a connection, right? So I think these individuals would now go, and it just became where it was. It was almost a much easier process at that time, because you already had the momentum moving, that had different faces, different experiences, ambassadors, and it was just a great thing to see at the time. It was
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, this is such an important piece, is to have the people referring. So whether that's, your senior level talent referring in other high level talent, because they left that firm, and then they're seeing how great it is here, and now they're starting to pull talent from other experiences or other worlds that they've lived in, or whether it's even that young talent. And so instead of sending HR to the career fair, you're sending the new 2-year, recent grads who've got a little bit of time under their belt here at your firm. And then they get to go tell that story, because the booths next to them are some HR person who doesn't really understand what the job is all about. And now, as a student, I get to go talk to somebody who's gone through this journey, and
Yeah,
it can ask them the hard questions, and they can share the real answers. Again, that authenticity there.
yeah.
So I think that's so super important. So I love these organic strategies. I love that you've taken control. That's just such another great point. It's like, if you're going to be a leader, like, if there's a problem to be solved, like, don't complain about how the world or other people are not solving it for you. Just go figure it out. Like, go take
Yeah.
action, because that's your job, is to lead the company or drive results. And um, you know, just whatever you got to do, just do it. Right. So, just do it. Just do it, right? Stop complaining and just do it, right?
Yeah, if you want to go get it. Yeah.
My favorite quote is from Sesame Street, because I have small children. It's I wonder what if. Let's try, right?
Yeah. Just go do it. That's if somebody's doing it, it can be done. So that's really, and if it's not, then there's a way. Let's figure it out. Because
Yeah.
if it's whatever you make it.
Look, it's work. Obviously, it takes effort, it takes time, it takes attention. But in particularly in these really tough to fill type roles and environments where the talent pools are so sparse. I mean, this is the best set of strategies, right? The be your own headhunter, employee referrals. These are the ways to get it done. You're not going to get it done through job ads or just hoping that somebody applies, right? It's
gotta be.
You're going to wait a long time.
Yeah, you're gonna wait. I was gonna say you're gonna wait a long time.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not going to be taking control of your own destiny when you do that. You've set yourself up for a long career of building networks and relationships with professionals that you could tap into really probably at almost any time. And, that now is paying, I'm sure, dividends for you in your career as you go in, start your own firm and grow your own firm, right? So, Scott, man, I am so glad that we have the opportunity to chat because you are just the poster child of, taking control of your own destiny when it comes to talent acquisition. And you're hitting all the key points that, I would share with folks that, again, I think many people are intimidated about, right? They're, I don't have time for this. You know what I tell people, by the way, too, as I say, 15 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it doesn't take that much effort, right?
No. And the more you do it, you start getting more efficient with it. So it's not like, maybe the hardest is just to get started as opposed to having that regular routine of doing it.
Yeah. So 15 minutes a day, go be your own headhunter, create some content, just pull out the phone or have your office manager pull out the phone at key fun incidents and moments in your working day and week and things and throw it up there, and if you want to polish it a little bit on Fiverr for, a couple bucks, they'll clean it up for you. They'll make it look a little bit nicer and off you go. So Scott, if folks want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for people to reach out?
Yeah, pretty easy. Just scott@billingmavens.com or on LinkedIn. It's pretty easy to find me. And if you send me a message, I'll respond.
Right. Well, we'll make sure all that's in the show notes. And we really appreciate you sharing your story today. And thanks for being on.
All right. Thanks. Nice meeting you and looking forward to talking to you again.
Thank you so much for listening to our People First Builders podcast. If you're a successful construction CEO and would like to tell your story on this program, please visit our podcast homepage, fletcherwimbush.com/peoplefirstbuilders, or check it out in the notes below. If you got something out of this interview and would like to share the episode on socials, we always appreciate that. Just take a quick screenshot with your phone, text it to a friend, or post it to the socials. If you know someone who might be a great guest, tag them on social and let them know. And don't forget, #PeopleFirstBuilders. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We're regularly putting out new content. To make sure that you don't miss out on any episodes, go ahead and hit subscribe on your favorite podcast channel. Your thumbs up and ratings and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our website, fletcherwimbush.com, or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.